Welcome in, everybody. As you can see, I have our interaction UI working pretty well. So it is actually going behind the object, so you can still see the object. It's indicating the button you need to press, and it's also displaying a custom interaction text above it that press to interact. And effectively, what this is doing is it's making it so that we will confirm the interaction with that key press. And in a second here, you'll see the event firing off from last time, the server interact. And that is still the case. So this will still have our interactions working properly across the network. So that's great to see. And full disclosure, I have over 3 hours of footage for implementing this. So I'm not sure how many episodes this is going to be. That'll obviously be cut down quite a bit. So, with all that being said, let's get right into it. And the first thing we need to do to get this functionality working is to make all our new C++ classes. So we'll go into CCS core, make a new class, and this is going to be our blueprint function library. So what this is going to do is it's going to give us a whole bunch of static functions, which means that they can be called at any point throughout the code without having access to a specific instance of the class. So that's going to be very helpful, and you'll see that in a bit here. So we'll create that class and skip ahead. And now we're going to get into creating some widgets. So this is just pieces of UI that you're going to be able to see on the screen. And we're going to make one called user widget CCS. And this is going to be what all our UI is going to inherit from. So it'll have any custom functionality we decide to put in. No big deal. So we have that all done. And now we're going to make one called user widget CCS text. And this is just going to be a user widget CCS with predefined text values that can be set, hidden, etc. And again, that'll make more sense as we get more into it. And then we're going to make the input icon widget. And this is the one that we were importing all those assets in last time for. So we have that created. And then we're going to make a sub widget of the text. And this is going to be the interaction widget. So it'll have the two text values and an input icon widget within it. And again, that'll make more sense when we implement that. So stay tuned. And now we're going to go into the HSS game, and we're going to make the HSS version of the interaction widget, just to give us a little bit more customization. And yeah, that'll be all the widgets here. And next, swap that out for HSS. Make sure to put it in the user widgets folder. And we want HSS, not CRE. And with that, it all looks good, and we can create the class. And again, I'll skip ahead, no reason to watch this load. And now we need to create a few interfaces. So we made an interface earlier, but this time we're really going to start utilizing them heavily with the UI, and I'll explain why later. So we want to make a none class, and we'll call it input icon interface CCS, and we want to make a folder called interfaces in this user widgets folder. So we're going to do that. We're going to press create class, and you'll see that almost all of these little sub-widgets are going to have their own interface as we go ahead in this project. So again, make a none class. And unfortunately, something went wrong with my compiling, so I had to type out the interfaces folder again. So this one is going to be for the text widget, and you'll see how we implement that shortly. So we create that class, and we skip ahead to the blueprint function library. And let me zoom out a bit so you can see better. So basically you can see we just say this function library will contain helpful static functions that can be used in C++ as well as in blueprints. Yeah, that's another thing I forgot to mention. We'll be able to use this in blueprints as well. And we'll slide down into the public section, and as you can see, we just have one function. It's the widget component functions, and it is the face widget component to target actor function. So if you noticed when we looked at the example there, the widget was automatically facing us, and this is the function that'll do that. So it'll take in a widget component, a target actor, which in our case will be the character, and then an option of whether or not to rotate pitch. And then it'll use that to face the character. And as you can see, we have our CPP file here. Put in those includes. And first, we're going to ensure that our components that are passed in are valid. Then we're going to calculate the look at rotation in between the widget and the actor. And then the next step is going to be to check if we don't want to rotate the pitch. And this option will be on in our case because we don't want the rotation to slope up or down based on what the character is looking at. So we basically just set it to be what the initial pitch is. And of course, if this option was off, the pitch would just be the look at rotation that we calculated. And then we scroll down, and the last line, we just set the world rotation of the widget component to be that look at rotation. So that's it, and that function is all set, so we can move on. And next up, we have to make some changes to our build.cs. We have some new modules that we need to add. So first we have UMG, and that is for our user widgets. We need that. And then we have input core, and we need that because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the enhanced input system to figure out what key is bound to the action that we need to find. And in this case, that will be the interact action that we haven't made yet. And we'll do the exact same thing for the build.cs for HSS game as well. So both plugins, we're adding in both of those modules. And then we'll move over to the input comp, and we'll add in a couple of forward declarations here for the enhanced input local player subsystem and the interaction seeker comp CCS, because we're going to need that. And then we'll slide in right below our command crouch function and put in our command interact function. So for now, this is going to be very similar to command crouch. It's just going to be when the player presses the interact button, this is the function that will be called. And it will attempt to interact with something using the function on the seeker component that is attached to the owner of this input component. And then once we're done with that, we'll move down here and add in a region for getters. And we'll have our get input action key name right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to take in an input action key. So in this case, it'll be interact. And then it will figure out the action bound to that key and return the F name of the actual key name that was bound to the action. And it will take into account whether or not we're on mouse and key or controller as well. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot going on in that function. And we'll move down here to our interact action declaration. And as you can see, it looks exactly the same as the other ones. Nothing special, and we'll need to make that in blueprints later on. And here you'll see will be one of our first grammar fixes from what we did earlier. So just copy that down. I got a grammar plugin, and that kind of is what it is, and you'll be seeing that popping up over and over again here. And speaking of popping up over and over again, we have a couple more get and check functions. So this will be for our enhanced input local player subsystem reference and our get and check for the seeker component reference. So just copy those in. It's pretty much the same as the other ones we've already been doing so far, so nothing too interesting there. And then we will scroll down a bit for our helper functions. We'll paste that in, and this will be the populate input action map. And what this is going to do is give us a map of references to our various input actions and the string that I mentioned earlier that will tell our input comp what input action the caller of the function is looking for the key of. So that's what that function will do. It'll be called once it begin play. And then we have the declaration for the actual map. So as you can see, the key is f string, and it is pointing to an input action pointer. So yeah, there's the map that we're going to be populating in the previous function. And then we'll head down into our references and paste in the declaration for our enhanced input local player subsystem and interaction seeker comp references. So those are just standard references protected by uProperty, so the garbage collector doesn't delete them. And with that, that's where we're going to call it for today. And we'll leave the input comp ccs.cpp for next time. I want to try to keep this series palatable for you guys. And I know this episode is very heavy with almost entirely C++ changes. So we'll continue on in the next one, and I'll break this up into as many episodes as I need to so that you guys can keep following along and not feel overwhelmed by seeing a really long episode of only code changes. And with all that being said, definitely like the video and leave a comment if you're so inclined, because it really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. And thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.